The ballroom shimmered with opulence crystal chandeliers dripping light like champagne, gowns that cost more than most mortgages, and whispers that sliced through the air sharper than the silverware. And in the middle of it all stood him, Daniel Reese, a single father, wearing a rental tux that fit like an apology. He wasn't supposed to be here, not in this world of heirloom diamonds and generational wealth. He'd only come for the charity auction, a desperate bid for a scholarship that could change his daughter's life. But in high society, sincerity is currency no one wants to trade. "Who let the help in?" someone sneered, laughter bubbling like cruel champagne. Daniel clenched his fists, willing himself not to react. For his daughter, he would swallow this humiliation whole. But then she moved. Vivienne Vale, billionaire, heiress, hostess, and absolutely untouchable. "Until now, I'll buy the next dance," she said, stepping through the sea of judgment. Her voice silenced the room. She offered her hand to Daniel, not out of pity but purpose. What started as a single defiant act would unravel everything the Gala thought it knew about status, about love, about who truly belonged. And as the music swelled, so did something neither of them saw coming. Because sometimes the most valuable thing in a room full of riches is the heart that refuses to be bought. The marble beneath Daniel Reese's shoes gleamed like it resented his presence. He tugged at the stiff collar of his rented tuxedo, a size too large, the fabric itchy, the bow tie a crooked punchline. A red velvet rope had parted for him an hour ago, but it felt more like a dare than a welcome. Everywhere he turned, elegance mocked him. Crystal chandeliers threw light like liquid gold. Women in couture dresses floated past him like swans. Men laughed, half drunk on vintage champagne and full of inherited confidence. Daniel kept to the edge of the ballroom, fingers clenching the numbered auction paddle like a lifeline. He wasn't here to impress anyone. He was here for Lucy. His daughter had earned a place at Aldridge Academy, but the tuition, the uniforms, the booksit was a mountain he couldn't climb alone. Tonight's charity gala offered scholarships funded through auction proceeds. An open invitation had arrived in the mail, probably meant for someone with an extra zero in their bank account. But Daniel showed up anyway. "Who let the help in?" The voice, polished and poisonous, came from a woman in silver sequins. A few snickers followed, bubbles of cruelty rising through champagne flutes. Daniel felt the heat crawl up his neck. He didn't flinch. He wouldn't give them that. Across the room, a figure shifted. A woman in emerald silk, poised as a monarch among pawns. She turned, and their eyes met. Vivienne Vale, the billionaire, the hostess. A walking headline. She didn't look away. Daniel blinked, unsure if he imagined the flicker of curiosity in her gaze. He turned his attention back to the auction list. He had a number. He had a purpose. That was enough, or so he thought, until the music changed, until she stepped forward, until the night stopped being about a scholarship and started rewriting everything he believed about his place in this world. Vivienne Vale was accustomed to commanding a room. Her presence didn't demand silence, it earned it. When she entered the ballroom, conversations faltered, heads turned, and the lighting seemed to favor her. Tonight was no different. Until she saw him. She'd noticed the man by the edge of the floor alone, not networking, not posturing. His tux hung awkwardly on broad shoulders. His tie looked like he'd knotted it from memory. But it wasn't his awkwardness that caught her attention. It was the tension in his jaw, the control. He didn't look lost. He looked like he had something to protect. Vivienne stood on the stage, holding the mic like it was forged from glass. The auction had begun. Trips to Tuscany, yacht weekends, dinner with a prince. The bids flowed like wine. "Next item," she said smoothly, "is a private waltz share, tonight with any partner of your choosing." Laughter rippled across the room. It was meant to be fun, light-hearted. And then came the sneer. Maybe the help can afford this one. Vivienne's smile didn't waver, but her pulse did. Her eyes locked on Daniel again. He hadn't moved. His expression was unreadable. She raised her paddle. 20,000, she said clearly. Gasps. Someone dropped a glass. The auctioneer stammered. Sold to Miss Vale. She descended the stairs slowly, emerald silk catching the light like moonlit waves. The room stilled as she walked, heels clicking, purpose sharp. Vivienne reached Daniel. I'll buy the next dance, she said softly. He looked at her like she might be joking. She wasn't. I don't dance, he murmured. Then follow. She extended her hand, not out of pity, but challenge. The orchestra struck a chord, and something in him answered. He took her hand. Together, they stepped into the center of the ballroom where worlds collided, and pride made way for something deeper. The waltz was slow, the melody liquid gold. It moved around them like fog, softening edges, swallowing the whispers. Vivienne's hand rested on Daniel's shoulder. His touch at her waist was tentative, at first polite, distant. You don't strike me as the ballroom type, she said, gaze unwavering. He managed a faint smile. Was it the tux? No, the fire. Daniel almost missed a step. Is that a compliment? It's an observation, she replied, her voice like silk over steel. You don't flinch, even when people try to break you. That's rare here. Is this what you do? He asked. Find strays and pull them into the light? Vivienne didn't smile. No, but something about you felt out of place, in a way I understand. The music pulled them closer. Daniel's muscles, so often braced against the world, began to relax. Her perfume light, not overbearing, lingered between them. I didn't come here to dance, he said. I know. I came for my daughter. She's all I have. You shouldn't have to apologize for that, she said gently. He looked into her eyes, green, clear, and impossibly calm. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. Around them, murmurs swirled. Phones discreetly snapped pictures. But inside, the small space between their feet, something strange bloomed. Silence, understanding, and the kind of warmth Daniel hadn't felt in years. The music slowed. He didn't want it to end. Neither did she. The gala faded, but Daniel couldn't. Vivienne found herself watching the photo on her phone again, looking down at her as if no one else existed. Who was this man? She asked her assistant to find out. Meanwhile, Daniel lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of his tiny apartment. Lucy's nightlight cast stars on the wall. Her breathing, soft and steady, kept him grounded. He remembered the hospital hallway where he'd first held Herberly, 23, hands shaking, heart full of grief and awe. His wife, gone hours after giving birth, a drunk driver, no time for goodbyes. Since then, it had been work, rent, bills, daycare. Dreams were a luxury. But Lucy's joy never dimmed. Her laugh, her questions, her fierce belief in him, they stitched him back together. Now, this woman, this billionaire, had stepped into his orbit like some celestial body, and everything felt off-kilter. Vivienne's past wasn't tidy either. Her empire was built after her father's scandal nearly destroyed the family name. She'd cleaned the blood off the marble steps herself. No one gave her anything. She recognized something in Daniel rawness. Yes, but also unshakable love. She couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at her without expectation or agenda. The morning paper featured them on the cover. Mystery Man dances with Billionaire Hostess. Vivienne sighed. She hated attention that wasn't on her terms. Daniel dropped Lucy off at school and faced stares from other parents. He ignored them. He didn't belong in that photo, but he'd meant every word he said to Vivienne. He just wasn't sure he could survive her world. Daniel Reese, said the radio host. The man of the hour. Poor dad, secret heir, hidden escort. Daniel spat out his coffee and shut the dial off. The article had dropped at dawn front page gossip. Paparazzi had snapped their dance from 10 angles. Blogs speculated endlessly. One headline read, "Cinderella's story, but flip the roles." Vivienne read them all. Her publicist called her 7 times. "You need to deny it, or spin it." "No," she said flatly. "I'm not ashamed." The office buzzed with curiosity. At her next board meeting, someone joked about rescuing strays. She shut him down with one look. Meanwhile, Daniel's job at the auto shop became awkward. His boss offered to set up a radio interview. He declined. He hadn't asked for any of this. But Lucy Sweet, wide-eyed Lucy, hugged him tighter that night. "You looked like a prince, Daddy." That made it worth it. Vivienne sent him a message. "You okay? Want to talk?" He stared at the text for 10 minutes before replying, "I'm not sure your world is meant for me." Her response was instant. "Then maybe my world needs to change." Daniel stared at his phone, reading the message again. "Brunch? Tomorrow? Just you and me." Vivienne. He didn't know how to say no. The bistro she chose was nestled in a garden terrace overlooking the river. Classical music played softly. Waiters wore vests and bow ties. Daniel felt out of place before he even sat down. Vivienne, however, looked radiant in a cream-colored dress, hair swept to one side. Elegant, but not trying. She smiled when she saw him. "You came," she said. "Curiosity wins over common sense," he replied dryly. "Good. I like curiosity." He sat down awkwardly, adjusting the napkin across his lap like a man pretending he belonged. They talked over coffee and sunlight about books, her travels, his work at the garage. She asked about Lucy, listened intently when he spoke of his daughter's love for space and science. "She sounds like she's made of stars," Vivienne said. "She is," Daniel replied, eyes softening. But as their plates cleared and the sun climbed higher, something shifted. A group of suited men walked past, giving Vivienne a nod. One of them shot Daniel a glance disdain, disguised as a smile. Daniel felt it like a slap. "Friends of yours?" he asked. "Colleagues," she said. "Investors, they don't matter." "They matter to your world," he replied, his voice tightening. Vivienne's smile faltered. "I don't need approval from men in cufflinks." "No, but you live in a place where their opinion buys influence. I'm not designed for that." Vivienne leaned forward, eyes steady. "Neither was I." Daniel blinked. "What do you mean?" "I inherited a mess. My father left the company drowning in scandal. I rebuilt it, alone. Every smile I gave those men was strategy. Every win was blood." Daniel stared at her, surprised. She smiled, again genuine this time. "Don't mistake the dress for the battle." He exhaled slowly. Maybe they weren't so different after all. Lucy clung shyly to her father's leg outside the museum's main entrance. Her curls bounced as she peeked at the tall, glamorous woman waiting just ahead. "Is that the lady from the dance?" she whispered. Daniel chuckled. "Yes, be nice. She's important." "To you? Or to me?" "Smart girl," he muttered, leading her forward. Vivienne smiled warmly, crouching to Lucy's level. "Hi, Lucy. I've heard a lot about you." Lucy blinked. "Are you a princess?" Vivienne laughed. "Not exactly, but I did wear a big dress once." Daniel winced, but Vivienne handled it perfectly. They toured the space exhibit first, Lucy bouncing with excitement, rattling off facts about planets and satellites. Vivienne listened with wonder, asking thoughtful questions, even helping Lucy adjust her oversized audio headset. At the cafe, Lucy devoured 2 chocolate croissants and declared, "Daddy can't bake, he burns waffles." Vivienne raised a brow. "I'll make a note." They sat under the museum's giant model of Saturn. Daniel watched the two of them talking, something stirring in his chest, something terrifying and beautiful. Lucy turned to Vivienne suddenly. "Do you like my daddy?" Vivienne blinked. "I think he's very special," she said slowly. Lucy nodded. "He is, but he's sad sometimes. I think he misses having someone to talk to when I'm asleep." Daniel's face went pale. Vivienne looked at him. "That's a wise observation." Lucy shrugged and swung her legs. "I'm 6. I notice stuff." Later, as they walked to the car, Daniel lingered behind while Lucy skipped ahead. "You were amazing," he said quietly. "She's amazing," Vivienne replied. "You've done something extraordinary." Daniel swallowed hard. "She's my world. She deserves every door open, and so do you." He didn't say anything, but he looked at her, like maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to believe it. The storm hit on a Tuesday. First came the tabloids. Heiress slumming it? Then social media. Conspiracy threads, think pieces, and nasty comments from anonymous accounts. Vivienne was used to it, but Daniel wasn't. He found his photo on gossip sites, his daughter's school swamped with reporters. People whispered at work. A local blog called him the Gala climber. Lucy asked him if they'd done something wrong. That's when Daniel called Vivienne. "We need to stop this." "Daniel, they're dragging Lucy into it. I'm handling it." "I'm not you," he said, voice fraying. "I can't fight this with money or lawyers. I don't want her growing up thinking love is a scandal." Vivienne was silent for a long beat. "I didn't think this would hurt her," she said softly. "I know," he replied, "but it has." She didn't try to argue. Instead, she said, "Then let me fix it." But Daniel had already hung up. The next morning, Vivienne issued a public statement not through a press release, but in a video. "I danced with Daniel Reese," she said, "because I admired his courage, not his status, and I'd do it again." Then she shut off all interviews and canceled the next gala. It didn't erase the damage, but it sent a message. She stood by what mattered. Still, Daniel didn't respond. He retreated. Back to routine. Back to quiet. But the silence wasn't peace. It was a slow ache, one that neither of them wanted to name. Weeks passed. Autumn crept in. The leaves changed, but so did something inside Daniel. He went to work. He picked up Lucy. He made dinner. But the lightness that had started to bloom was gone. He thought of texting her. He didn't. Vivienne, meanwhile, poured herself into work, but her smiles didn't reach her eyes. Her nights stretched longer. She no longer looked at the skyline, just through it. Her assistant noticed. "Want me to block Mr. Reese's number?" Vivienne paused. "No," she said. "Leave it. Hope isn't a weakness." At home, Daniel found Lucy sketching rockets with 2 figures holding hands at liftoff. "Is that us?" he asked. Lucy shook her head. "That's you and your dance lady." Daniel's heart twisted. "You liked her, huh?" "She liked you. That's rare." Daniel stared at the drawing long after Lucy fell asleep. He finally typed, "I miss talking to you." But he didn't send it. Because what if she didn't? The envelope was hand-delivered. An evening of gratitude. No press, no headlines. Just people who matter. Daniel turned the invitation over in his hand. He wore the same tux. Still too big. Still borrowed. But he came. This gala was different, smaller, quieter. Hosted in a garden conservatory under twinkling lights. No red carpets, no photographers. Just warmth. Vivienne greeted guests with grace, but glanced toward the door every 5 minutes. Then he arrived. She caught her breath. He looked like himself, and that was exactly what she wanted. He approached slowly, unsure. "This isn't your usual scene. I thought I'd try a new rhythm," she said. He smiled faintly. This was for me, for you, for anyone who's ever been told they're not enough. The music began soft jazz drifting on the breeze. "Will you dance?" she asked. He didn't answer. He just stepped forward, and in the hush of moonlight and murmured conversation, they danced again. Not to make a statement, not to provoke headlines, but because this time they wanted to. And for once, nothing else mattered. They met again under quieter circumstances. Vivienne invited Daniel to her town hausannat, the glass tower, but the brick-walled place tucked away in a quieter part of the city. It smelled of cinnamon tea and old wood. Daniel stood by the bookshelf, uncertain. "You live here?" "When I don't want to be seen," she said. "This place reminds me I'm still real." He nodded. "You're good at pretending otherwise. I learned early." She sat across from him, hands around a mug. "I've lost people too, Daniel. My mother died when I was 16. My father, well, the press covered what he did, the embezzlement, the humiliation. I became the face of the family redemption arc. That's a lot to carry." She looked down. "I never had the luxury of asking for help. Vulnerability was punished. Until you." He blinked. "Me?" "You looked at me like I wasn't my bank account. Like I wasn't some icon. You looked at me like a person." He breathed slowly. "Because that's what you are." A silence settled. Then he said, "I've been afraid of what this would do to Lucy, to you, to me." Vivienne met his gaze. "And now? I'm still afraid," he said. "But not enough to keep pretending I don't care." Her fingers reached across the table. He took her hand. Maybe they could both stop pretending. They didn't plan it. There was no music, no perfect setting, just a quiet moment between words. Daniel had walked Vivienne to her car after dinner. The air was crisp. Her coat brushed his arm. Neither moved. "Do you ever stop controlling everything?" he asked, half smiling. Vivienne shrugged. "I had to. It's how I survived." "You don't have to survive with me." That stopped her. She turned. "You think I'm scared of you?" "I think you're scared of wanting something real. And maybe I am too." Vivienne studied him, steady eyes, the way he stood still even when everything in him screamed to flee. "I don't want perfect," she whispered. "I want honest." He nodded once, took a small step forward. "Then this," he said, "is me being honest." And he kissed her. Not a performance, not a show. It was slow, cautious, and then sure, like warmth after a long winter. Her hand slid into his jacket. His thumb brushed her cheek. When they pulled apart, her voice trembled. "Daniel, I know," he said softly. "Me too." Nothing had changed. And yet everything had. Vivienne's car idled outside Daniel's building. Inside, the conversation spiraled. "I want to help," she said. "With Lucy's school. It's not charity, it's investment." Daniel shook his head. "You think I need saving?" "I think Lucy deserves better than budget limitations." He stood. "Don't use her to fix your guilt." Vivienne flinched. "That's not fair." "Neither is turning my daughter into a donation." They were quiet. Then she said, "You'd rather struggle than accept kindness?" "I'd rather stand on my own." Vivienne's eyes glistened. "What if love means letting someone stand beside you?" Daniel stared at her. "I've spent so long holding the world up, I forgot what that feels like." She crossed to him, touched his chest. "It feels like breathing, like choosing each other, not just surviving each other." His voice cracked. "I don't know how. We learn together." He didn't answer, but he didn't walk away either. It started with pancakes. Daniel brought a griddle to Vivienne's place. Lucy came too. They made a mess flour on silk countertops, syrup on marble. Laughter echoed through a space usually quiet. Vivienne burned the first batch. Daniel smiled. That's how you know they're homemade. Lucy snorted. That's how you know she needs practice. Vivienne laughed, surrendering the spatula. Later, they sat on the floor, plates on their laps. Lucy dozed nearby with a picture book. You're not who I thought you'd be, she said. You either. You scare me, she added. Daniel blinked. I do? Not because you hurt me, because you don't want anything from me. That's new. He reached for her hand. I only want one thing. What's that? You, as you are. No masks. Vivienne leaned into him. Then take me, as I am. And this time, he didn't hesitate. The gala sparkled again, but this time the air was different. No whispers, no judgment. Just admiration. Daniel stood beside Vivienne at the entrance. Cameras flashed, but they didn't flinch. He wore the same tux, but now it fit perfectly. Not just in size, in presence. They walked in together. A hush followed. Then someone started clapping, and another, until the room echoed with applause. Vivienne gripped his hand. You ready? She whispered. I was born for this, he replied, only half joking. The music started, a slow waltz, familiar now. She stepped into his arms. They danced. This time, not to prove anything, not to fight back, but because they had nothing to hide. The crowd blurred into light. The world faded. There was only him. There was only her. And the rhythm they'd chosen together. A billionaire hostess. A single father. And the dance that changed everything. Because sometimes the heart that refuses to be bought is the one that wins.